So in this video, we're going to talk about Stephen Grimm's Epistemic Goals and Epistemic Values article. Usually when talking about the value of truth or why truth seems to matter, two approaches seem to generally pop up all the time. The first approach is that truth is a goal of inquiry. That's why it matters. It's an epistemic goal of inquiry. Perhaps it has some kind of like instrumental value in that sense, right? The other approach is that no, truth just has some kind of intrinsic value in and of itself. It's valuable for its own sake. Now, each of these individually seem to hold some kind of weight in our kind of understanding of why truth is valuable, but they seem to lead to some perhaps counterintuitive consequences, right? So, for example, if it's true that that truth is a goal of inquiry, then it seems that any truth it should be worth pursuing, regardless of what the subject matter may be. But that seems false. There are clearly some subject matters that aren't worth pursuing. On the other hand, if truth is it has intrinsic value, meaning it is valuable in and of itself or for its own sake, then holding a true belief would appear to be just as good as holding a justified true belief, right? But of course, that also seems wrong. It seems that holding a true belief for which we have justification in holding seems to hold a little bit more weight than merely just holding a true belief out of luck, right? So neither of these approaches seems to be completely satisfactory in our understanding of why truth is valuable. So what gives here? In order to get a better sense of the overall problem that Grimm wants to address, namely trying to give an account of why truth seems to be valuable, Grimm takes each of the approaches that we were talking about earlier, each in turn, right? So, but he wants to have a better understanding as to why we can't just consider each of these approaches by themselves. Maybe we need a more comprehensive understanding, and that'll give us a better sense of why truth is valuable. So, what if we think that? So, why would we think that truth is more than just an instrumental value? Why would we think that truth perhaps has value for its own sake? Well, one approach, popular approach, is to follow Carl Hempel, who thought that, well, the reason truth is valuable is because we are just naturally curious individuals, right? That's the kind of being that we are. We're just naturally curious. So we want to pursue truth wherever it is to satisfy our curiosity. But again, clearly this doesn't seem completely correct because our curiosity may lead us into places in which we probably shouldn't be diving into, right? Some subject matters are just not on the table for investigation. So, okay, giving an account on the basis that truth has instrumental value doesn't seem to work, right? For reasons we just mentioned. Assume that truth has value for its own sake. What could be the problem with that? Well, consider the following sentence, right? Reading Don Quixote is something I do for its own sake, right? That seems to be a sentence that is used to express or used to explain why somebody would read Don Quixote. And for the most part, everybody would take that to be just take it at face value. Okay, you like to read Don Quixote for its own sake. But some individuals could naturally ask, well, why? Why do you read it for its own sake? And perhaps a natural explanation of that could be, well, because Don Quixote is funny, right? And it still seems to be an explanation that works when trying to explain why one would read Don Quixote for its own sake. But now note that in doing this, right, and in saying, well, I read it for its own sake. Well, why? Why do you read it for its own sake? Well, because it's funny. Now you are no longer reading Don Quixote for its own sake. That's not what you're saying. You're saying that you're doing it for this other reason, namely because it is funny. It is a funny novel, right? It's comical. But so this takes away from reading Don Quixote from its own sake. So even trying to give an explanation of, a specific activity for its own sake seems to be problematic. And the same thing could be said about the pursuit of truth. Why pursue truth? Someone may say, well, I want to pursue truth for its own sake. It's always going to seem natural that we can ask a further why. And that further why question, if somebody is inclined to answer that further why question, which naturally we would be, right, then that is always going to be suggestive to the fact that, well, maybe truth doesn't have this intrinsic value or value for its own sake. It's for the sake of something else. What is that something else? Whatever it is that you are going to use to explain why you want to pursue the truth. So at this point, Grimm says something has gone wrong, right? Like the two popular approaches that try to give an explanation as to why truth is something worth pursuing seem to be either one or two, right? Truth is a goal of inquiry, right? So truth has some kind of like instrumental goal, or truth has an intrinsic value. In other words, we just want to pursue truth for its own sake. But of course, either of these approaches by themselves seem to lead to these perhaps counterintuitive consequences, right? That if truth has intrinsic value for its own sake, then it leaves our beliefs that are in fact true but are also justified at the same playing field as just merely believing something that just happens to be true, right? They both seem to have the same kind of epistemic standing, if you will. On the other hand, if truth is a goal of inquiry, then it seems that, well, there are many topics or subjects that that would seem worth pursuing. But again, if we kind of stop and think about it, we can probably come up with a series of subject matters or domains of inquiry that are just not worth pursuing, maybe because they're just not worth our time, or maybe because they're just too taboo, or maybe because they just wouldn't bring any value into our overall understanding of the world and ourselves, right? So how can we resolve this issue? Well, Grimm thinks that there's something to be said about our sense of curiosity. And in fact, if we focus on the notion of our senses of curiosity, we may find a satisfactory solution to this apparent puzzle. So the problem seems to be this. The problem, according to Grimm, is that when we're using curiosity, we are using it univocally, or we're equivocating, because there isn't just one sense that we associate with curiosity. In other words, we use the word curiosity to refer to various different types of epistemic states, if you will, right? So we need to make a distinction, according to Grimm, between epistemic curiosity and what he calls prudential curiosity. So we have, according to Grimm, epistemic curiosity about a subject matter whenever that curiosity is essential in order to respond to some kind of puzzlement that we may have, right? So sometimes something seems very puzzling, right? And you're like, oh, I wonder what that is. Riddle me this. And so you just want to pursue that subject matter. You want to go down that rabbit hole just out of your sense of puzzlement. That's what he calls epistemic curiosity. In addition to that, we also have prudential curiosity. And the prudential curiosity is when we are interested in something or we're curious about something, not for its own sake, not because, you think, oh, this is an interesting puzzle and I just want to try to know more about it for its own sake, but because it is necessary, if you will, or for some other concern. It has this prudential concern. So it's necessary for survival or to get a job, right? So I'm curious in this because I need to know how to find out how to get a job, or I'm curious in this just for my own survival. So in fact, what Grimm is suggesting is that curiosity does provide a good explanation as to why truth is worth pursuing, why we want to have true beliefs. But he takes this further step in making the distinction between these two types of curiosities, epistemic curiosity and prudential curiosity. And so what he wants to say is, we go back to the beginning with the two initial, perhaps intuitive positions that we hold, that truth is valuable for its own sake, or that truth has instrumental value. Well, both of these seem to be true, but they seem to lead to these counterintuitive consequences. Well, the reason this puzzle arises is because we are using curiosity in this really weird or not really weird way, we're not using curiosity in this more refined way. And if we apply these more refined concepts, if you will, that Grimm is suggesting, then the puzzle seems to go away. Because, yes, sometimes we have epistemic curiosity, right? And when we have epistemic curiosity, we can have epistemic curiosity without commitment that justification doesn't matter, right? If we have epistemic curiosity, it's still going to be the case that justification matters. So it's not going to be the case that merely having a true belief is all that we are worried about, right? When we have epistemic curiosity, we want to have come to solve this puzzle or these problems, but we want to come and solve these puzzles or these problems under good reasons or with justification. In addition, sometimes our curiosity is merely prudential. And so when it's prudential, it's because there's some kind of goal in mind that we have, by survival or getting a job or whatever it is. And so let's suppose, we are curious about a particular subject matter for the sake of survival, let's say. Well, insofar as we are curious in a particular subject matter for the sake of survival, that is by default going to eliminate other subject matters. So it's not going to be the case that any subject matter is worth pursuing. It's only going to be that certain subject matters are going to be worth pursuing for the sake of survival, right? So again, the overall point or conclusion that Grimm is trying to argue for here is that truth is valuable, and both of these intuitive positions, that sometimes seems that truth is valuable for its own sake, sometimes it seems that truth is valuable instrumentally, right? Both of these do seem to play a role in our pursuits of truth, right? It's not like it's not like, well, it's either truth is valuable for its own sake or it's because it's instrumental. No, they are both the case. Sometimes it's intrinsically, or truth is intrinsically valuable. Sometimes it is instrumentally valuable, depending on the curiosity that is, we'll say, activated in us, right? If we have some kind of epistemic curiosity, the way that Grimm defines it for us here, then in that case, it seems that there's going to be truth for its own sake, and even then, justification is still going to play a matter in terms of how we come to acquire that truth. If our curiosity in terms of prudential curiosity is activated, then it seems that, yeah, now truth is valuable or instrumentally valuable, right? And that doesn't mean that any subject matter is going to be of importance to us. It's going to be whatever the goal at hand may be. So that concludes this video.